From Interfaith Alliance, this is State of Belief Radio. I'm your host, Reverend Welton Gaddy. Since 1947, Americans United has been working to preserve the vital separation between church and state in this country, a wall that's good for both the church and the state. One aspect of that separation is the ban on political campaigning by tax-exempt faith organizations, a ban that's being challenged once again this year by an organized effort labeled Pulpit Freedom Sunday. And here to talk about that effort, as well as the work of Americans United in trying to discourage it, is a longtime friend and a longtime AU Executive Director, Reverend Barry Lynn. Barry, welcome to State of Belief.
Thank you very much. Nice to be back.
Yeah. Let's just get started.
Sure.
Pulpit Freedom Sunday is scheduled for October 7th this year. There are probably more people that don't know what that means than know what it means. Yeah. What is Pulpit Freedom Sunday?
Pulpit Freedom Sunday starts out with a false belief that somehow the pulpits of America are not free. Now, let me just explain. Let people think about this. If you know that Pat Robertson is still preaching, now that he's a minister again, got reordained, and Jesse Jackson's preaching, if you have people with that diversity speaking about issues, the same issue from opposite sides usually, you know that we have a free pulpit. What these groups are doing, particularly one out in Scottsdale, Arizona, that is recently, it's better known as the Alliance Defense Fund. It's changed its name recently to protect the guilty. It claims that what we need to do, if you're a minister, they say you should preach and endorse candidates from the pulpit on October the 7th, hoping that the Internal Revenue Service tries to crack down on you, tries to say that take away, as they would say, your free speech rights, and then they will mount a challenge to the law that prohibits not just churches, but any nonprofit, any charitable institution from endorsing or opposing a candidate for public office. I mean, this is simple. They want you to cross the line. They want you to break the law. And then they want to find a way to challenge this legally. What they don't tell you, Welton, is it's already been challenged. It was challenged in a very early initiative of my own, reporting a church that was a home church of Randall Terry.
Right.
We wrote a letter to the IRS. We said these guys had taken out a $40,000 ad in USA Today. They should be investigated. They were. The church lost its tax exemption, and they sued. They lost. They lost at the appeals court. They lost at the most conservative panel of justices up here on the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals. Their lawyers told them don't go to the Supreme Court. Now these folks down in Scottsdale want to take another case. It's a loser.
Barry, one thing I always enjoy about being with you is that you can not only offend people, you can sue them. Or you're a lawyer as well as a minister.
Well, I do try that. In fact, it's even worse. You know, I could forgive you today and still file a class action lawsuit the next day. So I mean, it's even more nuanced and complicated.
Well, looking at it from both sides. What are they doing? I mean, they know the truth. They know this has been ruled unconstitutional. What are they doing?
What they want to do is create this fiction that this is one more example of a war against Christianity. They want to allege that anybody who investigates them, no matter what their misconduct may be, is just part of some kind of cabal with the Internal Revenue Service and, of course, President Obama to somehow silence the church if the church doesn't say the things the government wants. And that has happened in other countries. These are other countries, though. This is this country. Right. There is no effort. And, in fact, Martin Luther King Jr., I think we both had the opportunity at least once to march with Dr. King. He spoke in churches, in synagogues, every night almost of his adult life. He never, ever endorsed a candidate for public office. Why? Because he knew, and at that time the African American church was even more powerful an entity than it is today within communities, but he knew it wasn't the right venue to start telling you who to vote for, whether that was for sheriff or for president of the United States. These folks that want to change the law, these people who want to sue, they want to get sued so they can go to the Supreme Court, miss our history and miss something else about their own church. And you know this very well, as I do. Sometimes you give a sermon, it's about, well, just a public issue. Mm-hmm. People get upset. Some people walk out. Maybe somebody leaves the church. You start telling them who to vote for, more people walk out. Sure. It deeply divides congregations. So once again, separating church and state is good for the church as well as for the state.
Barry, I really like what you and Americans United are doing to counter Pulpit Freedom Sunday. You sent out letters to a large number of pastors. Tell us a little more about that.
Right. We took a cross-section of American churches and focused particularly on churches where either the president or Governor Romney are members of these churches, the United Church of Christ, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, reminding them, and we sent 60,000 of these out, reminding them that there is a law, pointing them to the exact place they can get more information from the Internal Revenue Service. Examples, for example, documents that say, this you can do. Don't worry about voter registration, but do worry if your archdiocesan newsletter prints a letter from the bishop saying Obama is horrible, don't vote for him. And sadly, we've seen these. We've seen these in church bulletins, Protestant and Catholic, and we did report the bishop recently of Peoria, Illinois, when in a sermon he compared Barack Obama to both Hitler and Stalin in the same sermon. Can he say it? Yes. Can he tell you, as this guy did, oh, by the way, so of course don't vote for him? No, that you can't do. You cannot affirmatively say vote for, vote against, or indicate in other words that that's your purpose.
You and I both, in fact, on the same panel have talked with members of Congress about this kind of issue coming up. And the IRS says always that they don't have enough people to investigate what's going on. Do you think the IRS will be any more attentive this year to these violations?
There's a technical issue that needs to be resolved in IRS regulations before they can look at the backlog of these cases. And, contrary to the critics of Americans United, we don't just file these willy-nilly. I was just in the paper this morning somewhere saying, this guy came up to the precipice. He didn't jump off. That's good. We don't want him to. But other people have. And we hope that the egregious examples that we present will in fact be investigated as soon as a minor technical change is made in some regulations allowing this to go forward. It's tough to investigate churches for any reason thanks to special privilege legislation that's been passed. But now it's time to get serious about this, because we could end up with a corruption not only of the political process, but of the integrity of the genuine prophetic message in churches, which is talking and critiquing government when appropriate, is not telling you who to vote for dog catcher.
Mm-hmm. Barry, it's in many ways been a very difficult year for Americans who are committed to true religious freedom, especially when religious freedom means both freedom for religion and freedom from religion. So I have to ask, what else are you up to in this regard?
I think the single biggest problem this year has been a redefinition of the very idea of religious freedom. You and I know what it is. It's the right to worship or not to worship. It's the right to engage in rituals that we choose. It's the right to use the holy scriptures we find holy or sacred, to control our sacred spaces. Now, sadly, because of efforts of the Conference of Catholic Bishops and some of their Protestant allies in groups like the Family Research Council, we find that a new definition. The definition in a nutshell is pretty much this: we demand the right to use our highly paid lobbyists, and they all have them, highly paid lobbyists, to go and get as much tax money as humanly possible for our ministries. And then, by the way, after we get it, we'll tell you we don't want to abide by some rules, some regulations, some civil rights laws of our country. You can't do that. You can't have a comprehensive health care system, Welton, in this country, as you know, unless you cover things like family planning. I was shocked earlier this year when we had people testify in Congress that having a Catholic institution just hand out a piece of paper that says, look, we're not going to cover birth control, but here's where you go. Here's an 800 number. Call them up. That was the same as forcing a rabbi to eat pork. I mean, there's no perspective. Well, people would think, honestly, that religion, the Christian faith, is about not Jesus, but about the intrauterine device. Yeah. I mean, that's really what it boils down to. It is absurd. They are making mountains out of things that are only, barely molehills. Huge amount of religious freedom. I testified in Congress about a year ago, Trent Frank's subcommittee. I said, my first sentence, I remember it. I even wrote it. There is a dizzying level of religious freedom in this country, even more so if you're a religious majority. Religious minorities, you and I both know this. In Murfreesboro, Tennessee, try to build a first mosque, people threaten to blow it up, people threaten to shoot you. This is serious. If you're a non-believer, and we represent a lot of non-believers and believers in our lawsuits, it can be tough. You can be told to leave town. You want to put up the Bill of Rights next to the Ten Commandments in a public place, a public display area, and told you can't do it because you're an atheist with the Bill of Rights. Like they have a different Bill of Rights. So we win those cases. We win a lot of cases, and that's important because we want to protect the rights of everyone.
That brings me to two last questions. One is for me and my interest. One is for you and your interest. What bothers me now is there are a lot of people who say, I believe in religious freedom, but what they're defining as religious freedom is so different from the Constitution that it's almost antithetical to it. Do you see areas where progress is really being made on authentic religious freedom?
I think in the court of public opinion, even more so than in the courts, and we do win a lot of cases in the courts, but also something like 2/3 of Americans believe that you should not, if you get a tax exemption, you should not be able to use that tax exempt venue, that pulpit, to tell people who to vote for. We've already won that issue. Yeah. When it comes to the faith-based initiative, something you and I care about a lot, 2/3 of Americans say if you get money, tax dollars from all the people, you got to be open to hiring anybody to run that soup kitchen, run that home for unwed mothers. You have to be open to anyone. You can't discriminate or give special privilege to people of your own faith. We won that debate. We don't like that votes on those things in Congress. We don't even like the way the president has dealt with those issues. But these are things where the public is with us. Come down to, should we take In God We Trust off the coins? Not exactly those numbers, no. And frankly, that's just an issue that has gone away. I mean, it's been litigated several times. No one even comes close to winning. But on these big issues, big ticket items that really have a profound effect, not only on the way money is spent, but also on the way we view the multitude, 2,000 religions in this country, 25 million non-believers, atheists, non-theists. We get diversity. We got to preserve it. We can't have government picking favorites or giving special breaks and special privileges to some.
Last question is in your interest and in all of our interests. Listeners who want to get involved in Americans United for the Separation of Church and State, both with respect to Pulpit Freedom Sunday and other issues too, how's the best way to make contact with you and get involved? I
think to take a look at our website at www.au.org. au.org gives you all the information, everything that we're doing, whether it's our big concert series that we're ending this weekend or our magazine or the other resources that we have. It even gives you a place to write a note if you think your religious freedom, real religious freedom, has been violated. We can't take every case, but we take every effort seriously. And people can get all this information by going to the website.
I've been speaking with the Reverend Barry Lynn, Executive Director of Americans United for the Separation of Church and State. You can follow their work, as Barry just told you, at au.org. It's always a pleasure to be with Barry and to work with him on these important issues. I know you're running today, and appreciate you taking time to run by here and sit with this microphone and be on State of Belief Radio.
I appreciate the opportunity, and I, along with many other Americans, are going to be wishing you a happy 15th anniversary and the award that you're going to get for 15 years of service to the Interfaith Alliance.
Thank
Great
you, Barry.
job.
Thank you so much.